Clerk has advised me we have a quorum. Those members that are appearing virtually have been sound tested. So with that, I will call this meeting to order. Welcome to meeting number 85 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Human Resources, Skills, Social Development, and the Status of Persons with Disabilities. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee will be receiving a briefing from Canada Mortgage and Housing Corporation and the Office of the Infrastructure Canada. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to House of Commons rules that were adopted earlier. For those attending in the room and virtually, you can choose to participate in the official language of your choice. Use the interpretation headset that is in the room. Select the language you wish to participate in. For those appearing virtually, you can use the translation icon at the bottom of your surface, and click. If there's an interruption in translation, please get my attention. Those in the room, raise your hand. Those appearing virtually, use the raised hand icon. I will suspend while it is being the issue is being corrected. I would ask members to speak slowly and to please keep your earpiece away from the mic to avoid popping of the sound system for the benefit of our translators. Speak as slowly as you can so that your comments can be translated correctly. Appearing today is Romy Bowers, President and Chief Executive Officer of CMHC. Welcome, Ms. Bowers. From the Office of Infrastructure Canada, we have Kelly Gillis, Deputy Minister. Welcome, Ms. Gillis. And Chris Johnson, Director General, Homelessness Policy Directorate. We will begin. I believe you, Ms. Bowers, and you both want to make a brief opening statement?
Yes, thank you very much, okay. Chair. I'd like to thank you very much for having me here today to talk about the housing challenges Canada is facing, what CMHC is doing to help today, and what we see as the path forward. At
the CMHC, we are seeing two distinct but disconnected housing crises. There is a crisis for the most vulnerable, that is, people who are struggling to have even their basic housing needs met because of a lack of affordable or social housing and insufficient income supports. Meanwhile, there is also an affordability crisis for middle-income people who are finding it increasingly difficult to afford market housing. These separate crises are connected by the fact that housing exists on a continuum. People who can't afford to buy a house will stay in the rental space longer. That makes rental more expensive than trying to transition out of social housing and into the market. That, in turn, makes the social housing wait list longer, which has an impact on homelessness.
If we're going to achieve housing affordability in this country, we need an across-the-board increase in housing supply. We need more market housing, particularly purpose-built rental homes, as well as more social and affordable housing. Much more housing, in fact. Our research at CMHC has found that to reach affordability by the year 2030, Canada will need to build an additional 3.5 million homes, beyond what the country is already on track to produce. Reaching affordability will take a whole-of-government approach. CMHC, as Canada's National Housing Agency, plays a very important role, of course. Our work complements that of Infrastructure Canada, who is the department responsible for leading housing policy. The strengthened partnership with Infrastructure Canada will ensure that investments in housing leverages existing infrastructure. In addition, the recently announced GST exemptions for rental construction and the increase in the Canada mortgage bond limits are the purview of Finance Canada. These two measures will also support the expansion of our housing stock. Having said that, the federal government does not have access to all the levers that control housing affordability. Many of them are in the jurisdiction of provincial, territorial, and municipal governments, who are responsible for things like land use policies, permitting, and tenant-landlord relations. So the main approaches available to the federal government are to encourage and incentivize the other orders of government to make housing a priority. But the biggest player, in our view, is really the private sector. The private sector provides the vast majority of housing in Canada. We need private sector capital, and so governments need to create the conditions necessary to attract that investment in housing. But even the private sector won't be able to just buy Canada out of this situation. Skilled labor shortages in the construction sector mean that Canada does not have the human capacity to close the supply gap. Canada needs to boost productivity in the construction sector, partly by encouraging innovation and fixing supply chain issues. We can't keep building houses the way we have for decades. In conclusion, I'd like to state that what's really important in this space is partnerships with the private sector, with other orders of government, with the nonprofit sector, with Indigenous communities. We need truly all hands on deck. Fortunately, the National Housing Strategy was designed very much with this in mind. Collaboration is built into many of its initiatives, but we need to do more and we need to go further. The National Housing Strategy has made significant progress since it was launched in 2017, but it was not, even at that time, intended to be the sole solution to our housing challenges. So I'm pleased to be here today to work very closely with this committee on how we can go further as a country to address housing affordability challenges. One last note, as members of this committee may already be aware, I will be leaving CMHC in December of this year to pursue an opportunity at the International Monetary Fund. It has been the privilege of my life to serve as CEO of CMHC and to work with a very dedicated and committed group of employees. And I would also like to acknowledge the dedication of the people on this committee and thank you for your attention to housing in Canada. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers, and congratulations on your new position. As with all positions, I'm sure the challenges will be different, and you will have an opportunity to contribute at a different level worldwide. So all the best as you move into a new role. Ms. Gillis, did you have some comments?
I just have some brief comments, Mr. Chair.
Fine.
So thank you, Mr. Chair, for welcoming here today. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are here on the traditional unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe people. Infrastructure Canada began supporting the Government of Canada's housing and homelessness agenda in November of 2021. Infrastructure Canada joue un rôle clé dans les
Infrastructure Canada plays a key role in housing, in federal housing policy in partnership with CMHC. This strengthened partnership reflects a whole-of-government approach that the federal government is taking to address housing and homelessness.
housing, public transit, water infrastructure, community centers, and other public infrastructure are all interconnected, and that they are essential to building communities that are livable and affordable. Communities where people not only can afford their homes and lead comfortable lives, but enjoy easy access to essential programs and services and effective public transit to take them places for work and school. Mais nous reconnaissons également que cet environnement de logement a
But we also recognize that the housing environment has changed drastically in recent years. A severe housing shortage, inflation, and rising interest rates have created a situation where middle-class Canadians are struggling with affordability.
working very closely with the CMHC as we take on additional actions to help address this crisis. We're grateful to have their expertise by our side as we continue to take an increased role in the federal housing policy and to strengthen this government's capacity to deliver on housing and homelessness agenda that can benefit everyone in Canada. Furthermore, Infrastructure Canada leads on supporting the most vulnerable Canadians through Reaching Home, Canada's homelessness strategy. This program, as part of the National Housing Strategy, is helping those who are homeless or at risk of becoming homeless to access support services and safe and stable housing. La stratégie vers un chez
Reaching Home is investing almost $4 billion to address this challenge. Through the strategy, we're working with our partners to reduce chronic homelessness in Canada and ultimately eliminate, helping our most vulnerable neighbours access the safe and affordable homes that they deserve.
Approach that considers housing and infrastructure needs together, we can better address local needs while achieving shared results. Relever les défis liés au logement et la
Tackling housing and affordability will take a whole-of-government approach and more investment from all levels of government and also from the private sector.
The federal government is taking action by offering programs and financing solutions that make housing and life more affordable for Canadians. While we invest in housing and community infrastructure, we're creating stronger communities and investing for the well-being of Canadians today and for generations to come. I had the privilege of coming here a few weeks ago with Minister Fraser, where he talked about its 6-point plan and needing to do more and seeking the committee's advice, and I look forward to the discussion here today. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Ms. Gillis. As the committee is aware, this is 1 2-hour session, so we'll follow the rotation to the end. Welcome, Mr. Chambers, to the committee this morning, and we will begin with Mr. Aitchison for 6 minutes, please.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Ms. Bowers, I want to talk about the Housing Accelerator Fund. I understand it is now closed for applications. How much was that fund overall, total amount?
$4 billion.
Okay, and so if it's closed, that means that money has now been distributed completely?
No, it means that we've received over 600 applications.
Okay, so how many applications have been approved to date, and how much money has actually gone out the door?
The application window closed at the end of August, and we have announced agreements with 7 municipalities to date.
Okay, and how much money does that encompass of the fund?
I don't have that exact number, but I can certainly provide that after the fact.
Could you tell us how many homes have been constructed so far as a result of this stimulating money?
The purpose of the fund, Chair, is to provide incentives for municipalities to reform their municipal processes, things like land use planning. It doesn't provide direct funding for the construction of homes. The idea behind the fund and the policy intent is to commit municipalities for transformational reforms, and once certain milestones are hit and housing starts are accelerated, they receive payment.
Can you tell us then how many units, are you aware of how many units have been started as a result of the program?
When the applications are approved, our target is 100,000 incremental new starts in the first 3 years.
So you don't know, do you know if any have actually been started yet? Have you had reports on that?
We've just approved 7 of 606 applications that have been received. So it's in the very early stages of the program, so I can't comment on the starts at this point.
So will you be tracking the results then? If you're requiring the goal is to have the number of units you just mentioned, will you be tracking the results based on each of the municipal submissions?
Yes, we'll be tracking two things. We'll be tracking the starts, the incremental increase in starts the municipalities have committed to. In addition to that, we'll be tracking the transformational reforms in their municipal processes. Each municipality is required to submit a detailed plan of the reforms that they undertake with milestones provided by year. We're providing check-ins with each municipalities on a 6-month basis.
As part of the adjudication process of each of the applications from each of these municipalities, I understand that an action plan is required as part of the submission. Every municipality has to submit an action plan for how they'll carry out these various different objectives. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Would you be able to table those action plans with the committee?
As I said, we've only finalized agreements with 7 municipalities, so we will make these public as the applications are processed.
Okay, so there's 7 municipalities whose action plans we can see. You can table those with us?
I'll have to take that away. I'm not sure what state they are in terms of public distribution, but I'll get back to you on that.
Okay, I just want to clarify that municipalities are public bodies looking for public money from public federal government. So I would think that we should be able to see those action plans.
Yeah, absolutely. Transparency is very important for this program and for all programs.
Okay. The Bank of Canada has made clear that there's a number of challenges that we're facing in Canada related to affordability. Tiff Macklem said that inflation in shelter prices is running above 6%. And part of this is due to the mortgage interest costs following increases in our policy interest rate. But he said it also reflects higher rents and other housing costs, and these pressures are more related to structural shortage of housing supply. And all of this is making underlying inflation more persistent. Would you agree? I know you're a former banker. Would you agree that inflation is causing some of the problems here?
I can't comment on the state of the inflation or policies related to that, but I can comment that CMHC has done an extensive study of the housing supply gap that exists in Canada. We estimated that there is a need for 3.5 million additional housing starts than are currently planned for in the next 10-year horizon, and that it's of utmost importance for Canada to double our construction capacity in order to meet the needs for a growing population.
And that's all well and good, but would you agree in general that inflation is making it harder to get more homes built?
When I look at the projects that CMHC finances, we have seen increases in construction costs. We have also seen, because real estate development tends to be a very interest rate sensitive sector, there has been a slowdown in construction activity given the high interest rate environment.
The governor also said that it's going to be easier to get inflation down if monetary and fiscal policy at the government are rowing in the same direction. So I ask you this, would it be easier to build more homes if fiscal policy here at the federal level and monetary policy were rowing in the same direction?
This is a subject matter that's outside my area of expertise. I think one thing I can note is that at CMHC we are trying, it is a very challenging environment for housing construction given the interest rate environment and also the inflationary impact on supply chains. That through our low-cost financing and other programs, we're trying to support the construction sector to the best of our ability.
Thanks, Ms. Bowers.
Mr. Van Bynen for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's good to have you back again, and look forward to an opportunity to update some additional information from our earlier discussions. Through the Housing Accelerator Fund, we're encouraging local governments to think big and to be bold in their approaches, which could include accelerating project timelines, allowing increased housing density, and encouraging affordable housing units. Can you discuss the best practices that you've recently published on your website that municipalities can look to when making decisions to legalize housing and to maximize density at the local level?
Thank you very much for that question. We have, as I mentioned, we've received over 600 applications from various municipalities across Canada. Based on our initial review of the applications, we have published a list of sort of the 10 top strongest practices that we see in the municipalities. And this information is available on our website. I'm not going to go through all of them, but some of the things I'd like to highlight are things like, one, the use of, or the exclusion of getting rid of practices like exclusionary zoning, where building housing is as of right. So that's a great practice. A second practice is intensification of high-density housing around transit nodes. That would be the second one. A third one would be the active support of municipalities of affordable housing creation in their municipalities. And this can be done through things like, property tax waivers, special treatment of development charges. And I can continue on, but I really encourage the committee to look at the 10 items on our website, and we will keep updating them as more applications are processed. But we're very excited by the activity and the enthusiasm of municipalities to adopt some of these best measures.
Great. Well, I'm looking forward to making an announcement in our own riding this week, I think, coming up. One of the issues that I often hear about from not-for-profit organizations in my riding are that the ones that are interested in applying for funding through the National Housing Strategy programs is that they lack the administrative capacity to complete the application process, and in some cases actually investing a substantial amount of money for consultants to see them through that process. So what is CMHC doing to help not-for-profit organizations with the to get through the administrative burden?
Thank you very much for that question. This is something I think about, quite a lot in my job. And when you look at the programs that CMHC offers, the vast majority of them are loan programs. And I recognize that many smaller nonprofit organizations, it is a challenge for them to go through the loan underwriting process. CMHC has worked very hard to simplify our processes and to make the application process as easy as possible. We created a grant-only stream in some of our programs that allows a simpler application route and processing within 4 to 6 weeks. So that's been a great improvement. With respect to use of our loan programs, I think one of the best things one of the best tools we have is we have what's called a seed funding program. It's a very limited fund of money currently, but it's a way that we have of paying for some of the costs that nonprofits have to incur to actually get some of the documentation assessments done to prepare for real estate development. I feel there's much more room for expansion of that program, and also I want to call out the work of the Community Housing Transformation Center. This is a group that was funded by the National Housing Strategy Program. Its function is to provide capacity support to nonprofits. Unfortunately, the demand for their services is very large and their resources are limited, but they've done some great work to develop the capacity of nonprofits, and we feel that there is a lot of work that can be done in this area.
Since you last appeared at the committee, what progress has CMHC made in speeding up the application processes and their timelines since the launch of the National Housing Strategy? And is CMHC implementing lessons learned and best practices when it comes to application processing and funding rollout from the Rapid Housing Initiative to other National Housing Strategy programs? And I'll recall the last time we were here, we had a recent report from this committee that identified the need for an end-to-end process review with specific milestones and a request that specific goals would be established to improve those processes. Have you made any progress in that?
Thank you for that question. We at CMHC look at our processes on a continual basis, and we survey our clients, whether they're successful in getting funding or not successful, to get their feedback so we can actually improve on a continuous basis. In terms of progress, since the start of the National Housing Strategy, we have decreased our processing times by more than 50%. With respect to programs that involve grants or contributions only, we can get the money out the door within 60 days. You mentioned the Rapid Housing Initiative. That is a 100% grant program, and we've been very successful with that in terms of getting the money out the door. Unfortunately, the demand for that program is very large, so there's probably one successful application for 6 that are submitted. But in terms of getting out the money out the door, it's very, very quick. In terms of the loan-based programs, we survey our clients, and we try to do a readiness of the client at the very start of the process. We find that if the clients have their documentation in order, if they have arrangements with other funders in place, we can process their applications much more quickly. So we're trying to do a better job of doing that assessment at first, to do a bit of a triage so that clients are provided with a realistic view of how long it takes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madame Chabot, à vous pour...
Madame Chabot, you have the floor, 6 minutes. Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you as well to Ms. Barr, Ms. Guinness, for being with us. Certainly, this is a matter that is of great interest to all of us, and by that I mean the housing crisis. We have a new minister who is responsible for that, and everybody has recognized that there is a housing crisis. As to the crises, there are a variety of solutions. Very often you have met with us, and we appreciate that. I have already asked you about the National Housing Strategy. It was more or less halfway through its course. It was in 2017, so we were about 5 or 6 years away from a full strategy. But given this, you say that by 2030 we will need 3.5 million extra houses, and there has to be the participation of the federal government, about 3 million in Quebec. So what is CMHC's strategy given these needs? Are you able to look at possible solutions to counter this crisis?
Thank you very much for that question, Mr. Chair. As I mentioned in my opening remarks, we feel that there are 2 crises in Canada. There is a crisis in affordability for the most vulnerable populations. And the reason why there is this crisis is because for the last 20, 30 years, we as a nation, Canada, we have underinvestment in social or community housing as an important part of our social infrastructure. We have some of the lowest rates of community housing when you compare to the G7 or the OECD. So one important part of the solution is for the federal government to work with all other levels of government, including Quebec, and the nonprofit sector to expand the social housing stock. We estimate there's about 650,000 units of social housing in Canada, and some experts feel that we need to double that to be at the G7 average. So that's one part of the solution. The National Housing Strategy represents an $82 billion investment in housing. Halfway through the program, we've committed about half the funding. We've repaired 130,000 units of aging social housing infrastructure, and we've committed to the creation of about 60,000 additional. But as you can see, much more needs to be done, and this needs to be a all of society endeavor. With respect to the second part of the crisis, and this involves...
I will have to stop you here with my apologies. My time is limited, as is yours. But there is something that is just not working. Let me give you an example. You are putting a lot of hope in partnership with the private sector. There are private sector entities that get involved in housing just to increase their income. But let me give you an example. In Montreal, there's a regulation in the 2020 regs that allows for affordable housing units. They could use that regulation and pay the penalties. But it seems to me that if there are no conditions to a commitment that are put forward, can you continue to use that approach in building housing units? It seems to me that there are difficulties with respect to the OSBL or co-ops that perhaps could also mitigate the crisis.
I don't believe that the private sector holds the sole solution to the housing crisis. I actually believe that for creating deeply affordable units for those most in need, government has to play that role of creating the housing. There is no way that the private sector can provide housing units at the rents low enough for those most in need. Having said that, I do think that I am very cognizant of the fact that 96% of the housing in Canada is created by the private sector. The private sector has not responded to the need for housing that exists. So I think it's the role of government to create the conditions for the private sector to create the market housing that Canadians want.
Do you have a strategy? Because it's not just affordability. You have to make affordability permanent, to make it sustainable through providing services. So does CMHC have a strategy for making this long-term?
So with respect to the funding from the National Housing Strategy that supports those Canadians most in need, we do have very strict requirements regarding the level of affordability and the length of affordability. With respect to other types of housing, which is more market-oriented, we have fewer affordability requirements, but in exchange for low-cost loans, we do have requirements with respect to affordability versus the market, certain levels of energy efficiency or climate compatibility, as well as accessibility.
Madame Chabot, Madame Zarrillo, for.
Thank you, Madame Chabot. Madame Zarrillo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will have some questions for Ms. Gillies, but first I'd just like to follow some of the comments that Ms. Bowers talked about. She spoke about collaboration and beginning conversations at the very beginning of processes. So I wonder if, Ms. Bowers, if I could get an updated contact list for Western Canada, CMHC, because there are projects in Port Moody, Coquitlam that are ready to go, but we just haven't had access to meetings or to make those connections. So if I could have that, that would be amazing.
Yes, we can certainly provide that.
Thank you. So my question is for Madam Gillies, and I'm so happy to see you here today, and I am so pleased to see the collaboration and the joining together of the Ministry for Housing and also the Ministry for Infrastructure and Communities, because I agree with you 100% that there are other social infrastructure pieces that are necessary, including transit and community centers, but our focus today is on housing. So my question is just based on the National Housing Strategy. Homelessness is growing while this strategy has been in place, and so this is a failing of the housing strategy. So I just wanted to understand, what did Infrastructure Canada do to alert the government when they saw the rising homelessness?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the question. And so when we do look at homelessness, since Infrastructure Canada has been responsible for the policy and the program Reaching Home coming over in November of 21, we have been very active in looking at different opportunities, and one of them is actually looking and doing research with a number of communities called an Action Research Program to understand, after you have Reaching Home in place, which requires coordinated access by name lists and provides systems and tools to community entities across the country to be able to help them help themselves on their priorities, that is one area of understanding what more do communities themselves need in working with us as we look to move forward. We've also launched the Veterans Homelessness Program, which has closed, and we're reviewing the applications. So we will be having a program dedicated directly to veterans. And also during COVID, in Budget 22, we've increased the funding for Reaching Home by another $562 million, and community entities will be imminently informed of their top-up for that amount. So those are the few things that we've done fairly recently regarding how do we address this really important issue within the country.
Thank you, Ms. Gillis. And you will remember little Alan Kurdi, the Syrian boy who passed away many years ago. And the family of Alan Kurdi is in my riding. And just recently, some additional family members have come to Canada, are in a hotel for the 30 days as refugees, and have been able to get an extension of another 30 days, but have nowhere to go. They will be homeless in the next 30 days. So my question is, does the Infrastructure Canada know how many empty homes there are in Canada?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. No, we do not know how many empty homes there are in Canada. Through Reaching Home, we work very closely with the nonprofit sector as well as municipalities in supporting kind of their priorities, and through a community advisory board, they look at what's happening within their community and make the decisions on how best to support the people who are in precarious or vulnerable situations in their community. So it's not the federal government telling them what to do or how to do it, but they have the best knowledge of their community context to make the most informed decisions.
So I would just suggest that part of the research project you talked about earlier is that there's a better understanding of how many homes are sitting empty in Canada. My second question is, does Infrastructure Canada, and maybe CMHC, if Ms. Bowers would like to answer, know how much housing stock is sitting in short-term rentals like Airbnb or VRBO? Is there a number?
I will defer that one to Ms. Bowers.
Thank you, Chair. This is an area where there is a data gap. Based on best available data, we think that there are probably about 30,000 units across the country. But there is, like other areas of housing, this is an area where this is sort of the data provided by Statistics Canada. But I think much more needs to be done in terms of increasing the robustness of this data.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. And you know that in BC, they've recently changed legislation around short-term rentals. We know that there's been movement already where some people that invested in multiple units are starting to think about divesting them. You mentioned, Ms. Bowers, that there's not enough labor in Canada to build the amount of houses that are needed. Is there any discussion about being able to repatriate, or for the federal government to buy some of these empty condominiums that will come onto the market in BC and potentially across the country if other provinces take this initiative?
I can't comment on initiatives to buy these units by the federal government, but I can comment that if there are indeed 30,000 units of Airbnb units available, if they do come available on the market, they will increase the supply available for Canadians. I would like to note that that the supply shortage in Canada is quite acute. We need millions of more units of housing. So actions on Airbnb is certainly constructive and can be helpful, but I think we really need to focus on increasing the supply of housing on a much larger scale.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. And my last question for you then.
The next round, Ms. Zerillo, we'll be here for the thing. Now, Ms. Gray for 5 minutes, please.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the witnesses for being here. During the previous appearance with the Minister of Housing on September 27th with the CMHC, the Minister told the member for Regina Capel that he would be happy to review the process by which CMHC bonuses are provided. So has the Minister issued you a directive regarding CMHC bonuses?
No, I'm not aware of this.
So if not issuing a directive, has the Minister come to you since that September 24th meeting to have a discussion around CMHC bonuses?
With respect to CMHC bonuses and our salary structure, we are an independent Crown corporation. Our HR practices are the purview of the our board of directors, and any changes to our salary compensation scheme is under their purview.
Great, thank you. So have you started your own internal review then on the bonus structure of CMHC and its employees?
Like many companies, we review our pay and salary structure on an annual basis, and we do this to ensure that the pay is appropriate based on market conditions.
Thank you. Over the past 8 years, only 12 new homes have been built on federal lands, where CMHC was expecting to build 672. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, but I don't recognize those numbers. We have an initiative called the Federal Lands Initiative, and it was a $200 million investment over 10 years to create 4,000 units. We've allocated about $169 million of the 200, and currently we've committed to almost 4,000 units. So I'm not clear of where your numbers are coming from with regard to this.
That was some testimony that came through another committee at the Senate, actually. My next question is, housing starts are down year over year, are they not?
Yes, they are.
Okay, and what is that percentage?
I don't know the exact percentage, but usually we have about, between 200 and 250,000. I think there's been about a 15,000 decrease since last year.
Thank you. So with CMHC bonuses continuing to go up, we know that there were approximately $20 million in bonuses in 2020, $25 million in 2021, $27 million in 2022. When we're considering that housing starts are down, we know that food bank usage is up. We know that people are living in tents. They're living in RVs and parking lots. Would you consider these CMHC bonus levels appropriate?
CMHC bonuses or incentive pay is based on the individual performance targets of various employees. CMHC runs a commercial business that generates close to $2 billion in income for the federal government annually. We manage a balance sheet of close to $30 billion. I employ a large number of professionals.
Thank you. Thank you. I think you've answered that. During CMHC's appearance on February 17th, 2023, I asked for CMHC to table board minutes from January 1st, 2016 to December 31st, 2022 with this committee, and one of your officials responded that it would be done. Are you tabling those minutes today?
I actually don't know if I'm tabling them today, but if you have not received them, I will look into why that's not the case, if that's the question.
Can you commit to a date when those minutes would be tabled? This was more than 8 months ago that this request came in, and we also did have an official let this committee know that those documents would be forthcoming, and that was in writing after the meeting as well.
So, Chair, I will look into this as soon as I finish this meeting and get to the bottom of why they have not been provided.
Thank you very much. And just to put this into context, I had asked for the copies of these CMHC board minutes over my concern with CMHC board governance and potential board conflict of interest when and if board members recuse themselves from decisions. Specifically, I'd mentioned one of your board members at the time who was a CEO of a housing organization who received CMHC funding. And there was a funding announcement around this with media attention and Liberal MPs and even the former or the current Liberal finance minister in attendance. So this is an important issue, and I would expect that these would come to the committee soon.
I fully understand, and I'll get the minutes to you as quickly as I can.
Okay. One last quick question. If the proposed merger between RBC and HSBC is approved, resulting in less competition in the mortgage market, would you expect the numbers of Canadians seeking alternative loans to increase?
CMHC has done no work on this area, and I cannot comment on that at all, unfortunately. My apologies.
Ray, Mr. Collins for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair, and welcome to our witnesses today. I had the opportunity over the weekend to attend the Ontario Nonprofit Housing Association conference in Toronto. Ms. Bowers, I know you were there speaking to many of those in the sector. One issue that came up was the whole issue of the relationship between housing and transit. And so I had the opportunity to speak to Mark Henderson from Housing Now TO, who talked about the provincial government's advertisement of lands along the Ontario line, where they've recently put out a request for proposal to the development community for two 25-story towers at one of the transit stops. And, Mark highlighted the fact, and he's a transit advocate, of course, Mark highlighted the fact that there was no requirement for affordable housing. And so he raises a good point. The federal government's a partner in this space in terms of providing infrastructure to the provinces for higher order transit. That's one of the goals and objectives of the Housing Accelerator Fund, and I think we've been pretty successful at that. But we're dealing with a situation with a provincial government that doesn't have the same priorities as our government in terms of looking for additional affordable housing support. Ms. Bowers, you talked about growing the sector by almost doubling the number of social housing units, affordable housing units that we have in the sector. And so in order to do that, how do we leverage our infrastructure support to the provinces, in this case, the province of Ontario, to ensure that their goals align with ours on the housing file? Right now, that's not happening. What needs to happen from a legislative perspective to ensure that's the case?
Thank you, Chair, for the question. When we look at all of Infrastructure Canada's future programming, since the change in bringing homelessness and CMHC within the portfolio, and this was announced in both Budget 22 and Budget 23, that our permanent public transit program, which will be launched and starts flowing funds in 26, will have a requirement in conditionality with affordable housing. That said, Ontario Line, there are discussions. There was a term sheet signed in 2019 regarding affordable housing. We do not have a contribution agreement signed, and there's active discussions with both the municipality as well as the province on what affordable housing will be brought to bear regarding the 4 subway lines. And so that need to link infrastructure as well as affordable housing is really important in everything we do from a community perspective. And so as we look at the next generation of infrastructure programs, that will be a requirement in all of our programming. So not just transit. When we look at the community, the Canada Community Buildings Fund, which is being renewed as of April 1st, 24, there will also be requirements for housing in that program.
That's great to hear. Ms. Bowers, you talked about seed funding earlier, and I've had a lot of organizations that have obviously successfully applied through the National Housing Strategy for seed funding. That helps organizations that don't have a lot of capacity in terms of staff or resources to do or undertake due diligence that's required in order to maybe receive funding with some of the other programs that we offer under the National Housing Strategy. And I think my friend and colleague, Mr. Van Bynden, mentioned that earlier in terms of the challenges that small organizations face. So seed funding is important. You also talked about growing the capacity within the nonprofit sector. We need a doubling of units that you just referenced earlier. And I know that for many in Hamilton, many of the nonprofit organizations, they have active applications in. So Indwell, City Housing Hamilton, Good Shepherd, Mission Services, the list goes on. So they're doing their part, and they're doing good things with the resources that we provide. But if I was to say to them today, we need them to do twice as much, I think they'd all look around the table to say, that it's not possible in terms of the size of their organizations and maybe even some of the development expertise that they lack in order to make that happen. What's CMHC doing in terms of trying to grow capacity within the sector to get at the doubling of those units that you referenced that needs to happen by 2030?
We have a very dedicated group of people at CMHC who are familiar with the real estate development process. We're not capacity building organization, we're an underwriting organization, but to the extent that we have time and resources, we are working with smaller nonprofits to help them through the real estate development cycle. I also think we also do sort of, I don't want to call it matchmaking, but we try to sometimes link larger nonprofits to smaller ones, or even nonprofits with for-profit partners who are willing to provide support to the nonprofit sector in a sort of pro bono or support capacity. I do think when I look at international examples, there's been concerted effort by other countries, for example, in the UK, for example, to increase the capacity of the nonprofit sector. But it's not something that happens overnight. I think it's something that we need to be focused on over a number of years to make sure that this happens, because the nonprofit sector plays such an invaluable part of providing housing for vulnerable Canadians, and we need to provide them with greater support.
Madame Chabot pour 2 minutes.
2 minutes, 2.5 minutes, rather, Madame Chabot. Thank you. I'll just continue in the same vein. When we take a look at this, how can it be? You speak to affordability. CMHC has put in place an acquisition fund that would allow these housing entities to get out of the private market. Is it part of your thinking still to have that movement away from private housing?
So currently, there is no acquisition fund at CMHC. It's something that is not part of the National Housing Strategy programs, but definitely, if a decision was made in future years to include it, CMHC would be in a position to be able to implement.
Is there any advantage for such a fund from the perspective of the situation that we are describing, that we have been living through over the weeks and years?
Yes, we have in Canada as a whole, we have 4 million apartment units. 2 million of them are condos that are rented out. 2 million of them are purpose-built rental that are aging. And it's this aging stock that provides the most affordable housing for Canadians. And the purpose of the acquisition fund would be to purchase those aging units and transfer them from the for-profit sector to the nonprofit sector. So that's the goal. It requires a significant amount of capital, and I think the province of BC, for example, has started to do this. So it is something that could be done in the short term to increase the supply of nonprofit housing.
There is also, well, my colleague, when the minister appeared, spoke to the fact that there are apartments that are there to be renovated, and there are a few thousands of them that have been so assigned. But when you think about the money that has to be invested to renovate these, is it true that CMHC is blocking checks? That is to say, blocking those who seek to renovate the thousands of units, just in Quebec I'm referring to.
So the National Housing Co-Investment Fund, which is one of our flagship financing programs, has a stream for renovation and repairs. The target for the fund is to repair 260,000 units of aging housing stock. To date, we have committed funding to repair 130,000 units. Unfortunately, I don't have the breakdown for Quebec, but it's part of the program that has been very successful, and we're very happy to be supporting the preservation of this aging housing stock.
See, Madame Chabot. Madame Zerillo.
Thank you, Madame Chabot. Madame Zerillo.
Minutes, please.
I'm going to revisit the comments, Ms. Bowers, on the acquisition fund. This is something that the NDP have been calling for quite a while. My colleague Jenny Kwan has been asking for it. Is that a recommendation that CMHC would put forward, or maybe even Infrastructure Canada, to the government to create an acquisition fund to get some of this affordable rental under public hands?
Thank you very much for the question. I feel that it is one tool that could be used to preserve existing housing stock, but my position always is that it's good to preserve existing housing stock, but as I mentioned, we need to actually increase the number of social housing units. So I think we need to combine an acquisition fund with continued investment in the creation of new stock to expand the social housing stock that exists in the country.
And I'm hoping that the new stock that we get, that there will be some standards of maintenance requirements for folks that take on that new stock. I'm going to just go to my last question because I don't have much time. Between 2006 and 2015, Conservatives lost 800,000 affordable homes, and under the Liberals, a loss continued at a rate of 15 units to 1. So 15 lost affordable units for every one new unit built. So my question, Ms. Bowers, is why have we lost so much affordable housing?
So this is a complex question, and it's hard to just answer in 1 minute, but I would say that the lack of housing supply, the mismatch between the high demand for housing and the low supply creation abilities of the country have made existing housing stock a very valuable asset. So in a market system like ours, when there is a supply shortage, it makes the price of existing assets much higher and more valuable. So there's been a lot of profit motive for profit companies to purchase these units, to renovate them, and I think that's what's resulted in the loss of this housing stock. But I would like to note that from our perspective, the solution really is to expand housing stock in general, and I feel that unless you do that, you're not really going to stop the erosion of the deeply affordable housing stock.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. And it goes back to my earlier question, which is the Government of Canada needs to know how many empty homes are out there in Canada. They need to know that number. I agree that we need more supply in the affordable housing space, but we need to know how many are sitting empty because we do not have the time to build every unit. We may be able to find some that we can use as a government now. So the urgency is so intense.
Thank you, Madame Zerillo. Ms. Ferrari, for 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you to our witnesses for being here today. Ms. Bowers, if I could ask you, how many mortgages do you believe will default in the next 24 months?
So I can only speak about the mortgages on the CMHC's books. We are a mortgage insurer, so we have a pretty good sense of the state of the mortgage market by monitoring our balance sheet. And we're very conscious of the impact that high interest rates are having on Canadians. And right now, we are looking at the highest risk mortgages in our book. It's about 2% of our book. It's about 6,000 households that are impacted. And we feel that they're at greatest exposure of loss, but we don't think there will be defaults unless there is a large spike in unemployment. Our arrears are at historic lows, and as long as the employment picture is strong, we do not anticipate defaults.
Thank you, Ms. Bowers. How many mortgages does CMHC hold?
Actually, I have that information for you.
Sorry, if you have it accessible. I just have such limited time.
Okay, fair enough. I can certainly provide that. So
Okay,
if you like.
that's great. Yeah, so you were here December 5th. I asked you the same question, December 5th, 2022. And you had said that the arrears or missed mortgage payments was less than 0.5% at that time. What is it now?
Declined. It's like 0.25%. It's very low. Partly because house prices continue to increase in some markets. People have more equity, and the employment picture for homeowners, at least, is very strong.
Thank you very much for that. So, Ms. Bowers, you are CMHC, which is a Crown corporation, which means you answer to the minister. You are not a government organization. You are owned by or run by the government, which is the Liberals. So how often is the Minister of Housing communicating with you on the projections of the interest rates, of default mortgages, and of the housing crisis that we're in?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Chair. I'd like to point out that CMHC is an independent, arm's-length Crown corporation. I actually report to a board of directors and a board chair, and on a regular basis, we meet with the board 8 times a year, and we provide regular snapshots of the state of the mortgage market, including things like arrears, and also any concerns we have about our mortgage book and the results of our stress testing and other risk management practices.
So the minister is never directly giving you directives on the housing situation or what they expect in terms of managing housing?
So we actually have a team that provides analysis of the housing market. So we provide briefings to the minister through Infrastructure Canada on a regular basis. And if that's the question that you're asking.
So it says the Crown Corporation is governed by a board and responsible to Parliament through a minister. So your goal is ensuring everyone living in Canada has a place to call home. I'm a little bit confused because I would think that you do have to be accountable to the minister then.
So perhaps I can help provide some clarity.
So sorry, I will get it tabled. It's fine just because I have such limited time through CMHC because I know your infrastructure, Ms. Gillis. I just have one last question, and because I'm tight on my time here. CMHC has a guideline, and if you don't mind, Ms. Bowers, reading it into the record of what is the expected or projected percentage people should be spending on their housing.
So we believe that in order for people not to be in core housing need, they should not be spending more than 30% of the household income.
And can you tell people or this committee how much the percentage of Canadians who use CMHC are spending just 30% on their housing?
I don't have that information handy, but I can certainly provide that for you.
If you could table that to the committee, I think that would be very, very helpful because a recent survey by Rate Filter found that 62% of Canadians exceed the CMHC's recommended guideline using 41% of their pre-tax income. What is CMHC doing to help bring down that cost? Because that is obviously not sustainable for Canadians.
We are very acutely aware of the affordability challenges that Canadians face. We do address this issue from a number of perspectives. We provide low-cost financing to reduce the cost of housing construction. We also have done numerous studies on the need to increase housing supply for there to be more of a better balance between housing demand and housing supply. We believe that ultimately that's the best way to address housing affordability in Canada.
Thank you, Ms. Ferrari. Mr. Long for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon to my colleagues and Ms. Bowers and everyone else. Thank you for coming. Comment first, I do want to compliment you on the Reaching Home program. I think it's a wonderful program. I know in my riding, the Human Development Council administers a program in New Brunswick, and certainly they and most of the nonprofits really appreciate how impactful that program is and how it's helping, with respect to homelessness. Also, I met with a developer actually this weekend, and he was saying two of his biggest line items are the GST and interest. And obviously our government now has, eliminated the GST on new builds for affordable housing. Are you able to comment on the uptake you're getting from provinces to match that?
So since that particular announcement was made through stakeholders and including met with the Ontario Home Builders Association recently and have said that it has changed the equation in making the math work. So we do anticipate a number of developments that didn't pencil before to be able to now move forward. So there has been quite a lot of enthusiasm of that particular initiative, changing the math to make things work.
Are you able to comment, like, for example, I'm in New Brunswick, obviously our Premier Higgs has decided not to pick up his side of it. Are you getting cooperation from other provinces?
So BC has indicated support, so has the province of Newfoundland. There's been some indications of support from Ontario, but I have not seen any definitive decisions on that. But we anticipate to hear back from the other provinces as time passes. But from CMHC's perspective, there's been a number of projects that were on the sidelines that have now sort of penciled, to use the sort of the construction terminology, and I think the GST has had a positive impact with respect to that.
Okay, thank you. With respect to the Accelerator Fund, I'm certainly aware that, I think London, Hamilton, Brampton, Halifax, Kelowna. My colleague to the right here is quite pleased with that. But I'm not, because I'm in St. John, New Brunswick, and I recently have been made aware that another city in our province, Moncton, has been selected. I guess would be another tier of cities that have been selected. So I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on how Moncton was chosen, what criteria is being used for that second tier. Thank you.
I'm not sure if there's a second tier. It's the same criteria that's being used for all municipalities. I think for larger municipalities, there is a higher standard that has to be met given the complexity of the housing. I think we need like 7 reforms instead of 5. But I think in terms of the selection process, it's really, we have sort of almost like a drop-down menu of reforms that we think will be most impactful in spurring housing construction. So we work with each municipality to choose which of those reforms are most appropriate for them. And most importantly, what we do is CMHC has a historical database of housing starts for that municipality, and we work with the municipality and really have a discussion as to what is an ambitious target with respect to exceeding historical housing starts, and what if these municipal changes and transformations can actually result in the increase in supply that we want.
Thank you for that. Just with respect also to the Rapid Housing Initiative, I mean, it's a wonderful program. It's been rolled out right across the country. I'm wondering, is there an opportunity to see how different projects have been evaluated versus other projects in each of our particular ridings?
Yes, absolutely.
So we're able to see that.
So if you require more detailed information about the assessment criteria, I'd be very happy to provide it. I think it's available on our website in terms at a very high level, but if you have any specific questions, very happy to provide.
Okay, thank you. When you were here last time, we talked about, culture and a lot of change has to come from within, and we certainly recognize that, you have a large mandate or a large responsibility to roll out money for affordable housing. I know it's a daunting task. I know the challenges are great. But we also talked about internally. So are you able to tell the committee about any measures you've taken to streamline, refine processes to assure affordable housing projects do move forward in a timely and efficient manner?
So yes, we have a continuous or improvement process in terms of having better communication line with the proponents, setting expectations in advance, reducing the number of documents that are required, being very clear about the other funders that need to be part of the equation. And through better communications, we hope to provide better service, and we're constantly surveying our clients to identify pain points and trying to resolve them on a priority basis.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Long. Mr. Chambers, for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Congratulations on your new appointment. That's exciting. IMF's a great organization, and I'm sure you'll enjoy it. In 2021, September 2021, the net exposure, CMHC's net exposure is about $609 billion. 2 years later, taxpayer net exposure of CMHC is $623 billion. Can you explain the increase? Is that driven by value of house prices going up, number of clients, market share increase?
So unfortunately, our market share has not been increasing that rapidly, so that's not the source of the increase. The biggest source of increase has been that CMHC has been making a concerted effort to provide more insurance for purposeful rental. We've seen a pullback from some of the banks and conventional lending. So CMHC's volumes in our multi-unit mortgage insurance has increased significantly, and that's really the main driver for the increase.
Okay, thank you. In 2021, the capital on hand was $13.2 billion. What capital on hand do you have today at CMHC?
Actually, I don't have that number on me, but I think it's. I can provide that to you after the fact, if that's okay.
I guess the question is, in a market where there's concern about overvaluation in the housing market, overheated housing market, taxpayer exposure is going up, CMHC keeps capital on hand. In the early 80s, actually, taxpayers had to put money into CMHC. I know you mentioned to my colleague that as long as unemployment remains low, you feel confident about people's ability to pay. Is there a unemployment level that you begin to get concerned about?
So I'm a risk manager by profession. So this I'm very this is something I think about every day at CMHC. We're very aware of the fact that we have to run our business with due regard for loss, and we conduct stress testing on a regular basis to make sure that there is no loss that has to be borne by Canadian taxpayers. And our stress testing, which assumes almost a doubling of the unemployment rate, would still ensure that we have enough capital to withstand those losses. We hope that this, again, I want to state that this is a stress test. It's a hypothetical scenario, but we do stress testing on a regular basis, and it's an area where we always feel that we need to be very conservative in actually assuming the worst so that taxpayers are protected.
Okay, thank you. What's CMHC's view on how much additional costs will be imposed by NRCan and National Research Council's new building code?
So we are actually doing a study on this because it could have an impact on the costing for the projects that we finance. Unfortunately, this work is still in progress, but we should have some results of our assessment by the end of the year.
Okay. Could I ask that those results be tabled with the committee, and perhaps since you may be transitioning, that we'll follow up on that. I mean, this National Building Code proposal has been around for 3 or 4 years. The organization that's in charge of managing, or at least looking at affordability, you would think would have a view on how much this cost would add per unit, which is ultimately borne by, of course, the developer up front and then eventually the purchaser. Some studies suggest it's $30,000 to $50,000 a unit. So that would be a piece of information that would be very helpful for the committee to have CMHC's view on. I guess another question might be, there seems to be a bit of an execution issue, and I'll just leave you with an example in my last 30 seconds. A regional government replied under the RHI to increase the number of units by renovating existing units that they already owned, but they were adding doors. They were turned down, even though the doors only cost $150,000 a door. But they were turned down because it didn't exactly fit the rigid scope of RHI. And I think we need to look better at our ability to execute and think outside the box. Other levels of government, by the way, count that in their funding programs, and we missed out on an opportunity to very cheaply add new doors in some communities across our region. Thank you.
Short answer, Ms. Bowers.
I appreciate that feedback from Mr. Chambers. This is the kind of feedback that's very valuable for us, so we'll take that. I don't know about the specific project he's referring to, but very valuable to have this information so we can continue to improve our programs going forward. So thank you.
Could you provide a written response to the committee when you have a chance to analyze the information?
With respect to the building code, yes.
Thank you. Mr. Fragas-Catos for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you to all of you for being here today. Ms. Bowers, at the beginning in your presentation, you talked about supply, how supply really is underpinning the housing crisis before us. With the waiving of GST on the construction of apartments, what is that expected to do in terms of adding to the number of units across the country? Do you have figures on that?
It's early days, so we don't have estimates, but just based on some of the, I live in Toronto, so some of the developers that I talk to on a regular basis have said that it's reduced per unit cost by up to $50,000. So we think there is going to be a significant impact.
I did see that Dream Unlimited, a very large builder based in Toronto, said that the measure alone would help them add 5,000 units. Just that company alone, I think, speaks volumes. You also mentioned the importance of rental, in particular, adding rental units to supply. Why do you emphasize that?
I mentioned the fact that we have 4 million rental units. 2 million are the old units built in the 60s, 70s. 2 million are new condos that are owned by private individuals and are rented out. And I really believe that purposeful rental provides security of tenure and is most appropriate form of housing for 30% of Canadians who are renters. I really appreciate the condos as rental stock, but I think it's given that we're a growing population, we welcome newcomers who are initially renters. I feel that there is a need to expand the stock, and there hasn't been a significant expansion since the 70s, and there's been some uptick in recent years, but I think we need to continue with investments in this area.
And shifting focus now on the Accelerator Fund, for the everyday person watching at home, you talk about impediments to building on the local level and how the Accelerator Fund is meant to incent changes at the municipal level. What sort of impediments are you talking about? Could you get into some of the specifics of exclusionary zoning and how that impacts upon supply, or the lack thereof?
Yeah, so maybe I can tell a story that is I live in the West End of Toronto, and for many years it was not legal to build laneway houses in Toronto, or it was very difficult because of very restrictive municipal regulations. So it's possible to, by changing these rules, to actually, create rental units very quickly using existing infrastructure. So that's one example of changes that could be incented by the Accelerator Fund. Some municipalities have embraced laneway housing and other forms of housing, but other municipalities have not. So I think there's a huge opportunity for all municipalities in Canada to adopt progressive practices like this.
Okay, and I wanted to ask you about the recent CMHC report on housing starts. Where are we overall in the country in terms of the numbers?
So housing starts tend to be between, as I mentioned, between 200 and 250,000 units. I don't have the most recent numbers off the top of my head, but still above 200,000 units. We feel that housing starts are actually still holding up despite the very challenging environment. So they have come down, but we feel that there is some optimism in that they haven't decreased as much as we thought. And we feel that some of the changes that have been made recently with respect to GST changes should provide further support to the sector. But as I mentioned earlier, much more needs to be done. We need to basically double our housing starts. So we need to work as a country to figure out what the impediments are and act together to really break them down.
I have less than a minute left, and I didn't want to let the opportunity pass on homelessness. With the National Housing Strategy, how many individuals have been taken off the street? How many individuals who were homeless are now housed as a result of programs that are available through the National Housing Strategy?
Thank you very much for the question. When we look at the first 3 years of Reaching Home, we have over 70,000 people who were placed in more stable homes. And when we look at, a year out, 3/4 of them are still in stable homes. So it's working. We've got 122,000 people that were prevented from being homeless. We've got 30,000 people who are given income assistance. We've got 7,400 people who are given job training to give them a more sustainable lifestyle going forward. We've got 11,500 people who are given new paid employment. 7,100 people who are given education programs, again, to change their forward trajectory. 27,000 people who are given temporary accommodations during the COVID period of time, and created 222,000 temporary spaces during the COVID period of time to keep people safe from the health effects of the pandemic. So that was just in the first 3 years of the program. We're in the 4th year now, and we've created a new online system so our shelter capacity can report that information much more efficiently, and we'll be reporting and making that information transparent once this fiscal year completes.
Thank you, Mr. Fragas-Kellis. Madame Chabot. Madame Chabot.
Madame Chabot, 2.5 minutes. 2.5 again? Oh, well. Listen, with all the respect that I have for you and for the minister and all who administer the CMHC program, I think we are dealing with something extremely difficult here. It's going to be very difficult to change the severity of the situation with which we are faced, and I'm very much afraid that nothing will happen. You have said that CMHC represents $82 billion of public money, and that should diminish the pressure, should help make housing more affordable. You said nothing about the government's GST decision. It might be an incentive to create new housing, but there is no guarantee for a renter that costs will drop. It might be a formula that may have an influence, but it could even go up further before rents go down. So here's my question. Is there something that could be done right now with all of these social housing units in Quebec and in the units in Ottawa that have been shunted aside where nothing is being done because there is a refusal to send a check to those who would like to make an investment in renovating units? Is this what the obstacle is?
Mr. Chair, I can't speak to individual projects or individual applications, but if Madame Chabot would give me, indication of the applications that are stuck in the CMHC pipeline, very happy to look into that. All our programs are oversubscribed, and we are through 50% of actually committing the funding that's been allocated to us. We have a substantial amount of repair funding that could be allocated for repairs in Quebec, and very happy to discuss any projects that she may be concerned about.
Well, I certainly will await this information, and I'll be able to give you more details, but it doesn't make any sense. It could be done right now. Ms. Gillis, in the Going Home program, there are negotiations underway with Quebec, and I'd like to know what exactly is happening with those negotiations. Yes, thank you for the question. We are in active discussion with Quebec. We've made quite a bit of progress, and more progress will be made over the next 2 years. I am very optimistic that we will be able to reach an agreement with Quebec soon. Thank you.
For 2.5 minutes.
Mr. Chair, that's me.
That is you, Madame Zarrillo.
Thank you so much. My comments are for Ms. Bowers. Ms. Bowers, last time you were here, I did take issue with REITs being funded through CMHC. So I just wanted to read something from RioCan, an article. The cheapest debt in town is CMHC guaranteed debt, which you can put on rental residential buildings. So we are quite hopeful that our first CMHC transaction will take place before the end of the summer, said the CEO from RioCan. Over the next few years, the company may boost financing with CMHC guaranteed loans by as much as $800 million, said the CEO. The financing can be about 80 basis points less than a traditional commercial mortgage, he added. Hopefully, we'll do a lot of them, he said. We intend to replace a lot of our commercial debt because it's just a lot cheaper. 80 basis points on $1 billion is $800 million a year. This is a boon for unit holders. When we are saving $8 million a year, there's $8 million more to distribute to investors. So this is the CEO of RioCan boasting about how Canadian government, CMHC, is making the company's unit holders rich through increasing their dividends. At the same time, rents are rising in many of these REITs. So it's clear from this comments from the CEO of RioCan that they don't need CMHC incentives, that they're fully willing to go to traditional commercial lending, and that none of this sweetheart rates that they receive are actually flowing down to renters in the market. So I wanted to understand, was this the goal of CMHC when underwriting with such low interest rates to these REITs, that they would redistribute it to their shareholders?
So I can't comment specifically on the RioCan situation, but I can tell you that CMHC provides mortgage insurance for purpose-built rental developers, which include REITs. And we feel that it's important to do this because we have a deficit of purpose-built rental in Canada, and the CMHC insurance that's provides a little bit of a financial incentive for commercial developers to engage in this space. It's much more lucrative for these developers to develop condos versus purpose-built rentals, and it's for this reason that we provide mortgage insurance to make the financial equation work for those who are willing to provide purpose-built rental. And it's obviously it's very clear that there has to be a level of profitability that is attractive for the sector for a large amount of capital that we need to grow it. Having said all this, I am also very sympathetic to the need to have very strong protections so that tenants' rights are protected. This is usually provincial, territorial, or municipal jurisdiction. But from a CMHC's perspective, our goal is to provide cheaper financing to provide a growth in the sector. We're willing to provide premium discounts for affordability and other social targets, but we cannot. We feel that the companies that we work with are responsible corporate actors, and that they're contributing to the housing supply which our country desperately needs.
Thank you, Madame Zerillo. Just clear to the members, we will, until the meeting adjourns at 1, we follow the routine motion speaking order, so that it means it's 5-5, 2.5, and 2.5. Mr. Aitchison, 5 minutes, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd actually like to follow up quickly on the multi-unit rentals for a moment. The MLI Select program is specifically used by multi-unit builders to insure their mortgages. In the spring, CMHC increased that rate by almost 200%. Can you tell me how many applications were received after that announcement and before the new rate went into effect?
So I think in the month of June, which was the peak, we had 5,000 applications in the queue.
And so how big is the backlog? How many applications have you actually been able to review?
So just to give you a sense, our applications went from 400 a month to 800, sometimes over 1,000. So we've doubled our underwriting staff. So we've reduced the backlog from 4,000 to 2,000, and we're going to be able to clear the backlog by the end of the year.
So how many underwriting staff do you have now then?
So we doubled it. So we had about 50. So we increased it by 30.
How many of those projects are no longer viable because of the new rate?
In terms of the premium?
Yeah.
So we did, first of all, I'd like to clarify that we increased the premium. We have to run this business on a commercial basis. We had not increased premium since 2017. There were changes to accounting rules, which we have to follow, as well as regulatory capital requirements set by OSFI. And we had to change our pricing so we achieved minimum commercial returns. That's the reason for the change. Before we increased the premium, we did extensive consultations with developers who confirmed to us that, of course, they didn't want an increase in premium. However, in terms of impacting the viability of the project, they did not think that the premium increase would impact viability, but in fact, it was the other product features that were important.
Okay. Thanks for that. I'd like to move on to Ms. Gillis. On May 11th in 2021, the Government of Canada announced $10.4 billion for for 4 different public transit projects in Toronto. I'm sure you're completely familiar with them. $2.2 billion for the Scarborough Subway Extension, $1.8 billion for the Eglinton Crosstown West Extension, $2.24 billion for the Yonge North Subway Extension, and $4 billion towards the new Ontario line. Can you tell me how many units have been started or constructed so far on or around the stations like on the Scarborough Extension line?
I can look into it with Ontario. We're in active negotiations with Ontario and Toronto. We don't have signed contribution agreements with them just yet on those subway lines. There was a term sheet that was announced that you're referring to. And as they're progressing in their further development, we're looking and working with them on contribution agreements and commitments regarding affordable housing.
So that announcement in May of 2021, it's not formalized in any agreement yet?
It's a term sheet that was agreed to, not a formal contribution agreement.
Okay. And so as part of the review of that contribution agreement, there's a number of conditions for this money. One of those conditions includes building affordable housing near transit-oriented development as is feasible in line with City of Toronto objectives and report on them publicly. That's correct?
Correct.
Can you give me an example where building housing near transit-oriented development may not be feasible?
I believe it's the extent that would be feasible. So in looking at the type of development, how much would be feasible within that particular building to make it still financially viable to proceed. And so that is the discussion between Ontario and Toronto that is active actually at this point in time.
So does Infrastructure Canada have a target, a base number that if they cannot? So for example, let's take the Scarborough subway extension. Do you have a sense of how many units you'd like to see for your contribution of $2.2 billion?
So when we look at our previous programming versus our new programming and our permanent public transit, yes, we will. And we're actually consulting on the methodology right now and what the requirements are. When we use this particular program, it was part of our Invest in Canada program, as well as bridge financing between the Invest in Canada program.
Just quickly, I'm running out of time. Can you?
It's a discussion right now because we did not have it in our previous programming conditions regarding affordable housing. So it's a new element that we've brought to bear,
right.
And so that's where there's active discussions on what would be possible given the already advanced development of those particular lines.
Thank you, Mr. Aitchison. We'll probably get to another round with you. Mr. Fragas-Catos or Mr. Collins? Who is Mr. Collins? Mr. Collins, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I think one of the most pressing needs that we have right now through our housing crisis are those living in encampments, and how we deal with that very vulnerable population who have deep needs in terms of requirements for addiction support, requirements for mental health services, and a whole host of other issues, life problems that they're experiencing. And so my question would be around Reaching Home has done incredible work, I think, Ms. Gillis, as you pointed out earlier, in terms of a response to my colleague's question about how many people we've helped under that program. And I know that many of the service providers in Hamilton, specifically Indwell and others, are providing tremendous transitional housing supports for that very vulnerable population, pulling them out of encampments and getting them into transitional housing that with supports to ensure that when we find an affordable place for them to live, permanent housing, that they're not back in an encampment within a few short weeks or months. I couple that with some of the programs that we offer under the National Housing Strategy. The Rapid Housing Initiative is one that caters to a very vulnerable population. The Co-Investment Fund provides that same support to the sector. And so I find that there are multiple applications for organizations like Indwell, Mission Services, Wesley. I have a whole host of them in Hamilton that serve the people coming out of encampments. And they're forced to apply through different streams in order to make a project work. And so I just wonder whether there's discussions that occur between CMHC and the ministry in terms of how we can streamline those supports so that small organizations, nonprofits, are not forced to fill out multiple applications when they're trying to serve some of our most vulnerable Canadians, and they're trying to do that in a very timely way.
Perhaps I'll start, and then I'll turn to my colleague, Ms. Bowers. There's very close collaboration between Infrastructure Canada and CMHC on the work of the National Housing Strategy and some of the work certainly from the Co-Investment Fund that funds shelters. And when we look at encampments, actually Infrastructure Canada just did a survey of 72 communities across the country to better understand, what are the issues, how come people are using encampments, are there particular barriers within shelters? Is it capacity? Is it because of barriers regarding family, allowing pets, measures regarding addiction and support services to better, as we look at, programs going forward, that we can be better informed and work closer in collaboration with our communities. So certainly one of the concerns right now is shelter capacity. Over COVID, the permanent reductions of shelter capacity are just coming back, and there was temporary shelters that were used. And so as we look at different programs going forward, I think the close collaboration between the community entities that are delivering Reaching Home, the opportunities from programming, whether it's from CMHC in the bricks and mortar or from Reaching Home and providing the wraparound services, really requires that alignment. And that's why we've created also a federal, provincial, territorial working group on supportive housing and homelessness to actually not just work closely between ourselves, but work closely with provinces and municipalities better to make sure that all of our levers are being aligned to be most effective.
Thank you. Ms. Bowers, can I ask you about innovation? So you talked about the number of homes that are required, not just in the affordable sector, but the market sector to satisfy demand. Many of the construction methods we use today we've been using for 100 years. My friend and colleague and I had an opportunity to visit Element 5's facility in St. Thomas to see some of the innovative methods they're using to build mass timber projects. I also had the opportunity to tour NRB, which is another modular company that's providing some innovative things. But they certainly aren't prepared, I think, or even don't have the capacity to build the number of homes that are required by 2030 or even by 2050. So can you talk about what CMHC is doing to drive innovation within the sector to ensure that we were able to build domestically the amount of supply that's required for Canadians?
Yeah, this is a critical issue in addressing our housing supply gap. We build 200,000 houses today, and we built 200,000 units in the 1970s when our population was much smaller. So clearly, I think our construction sector is very fragmented, and I think there's room for innovation in this area. We have a $750 million innovation fund that has been used to support some of the construction techniques that you sort of mentioned. I think there's more we can do there. But even through the Rapid Housing Initiative, we've provided support to modular housing companies, and I think that there is more opportunities for scaling up there. There's also areas like panelization and other factory-built techniques. I do understand that, because housing is a very cyclical industry, that there is, smaller construction companies do not want to invest the capital needed for the innovation. But I think this is an area where government can play a role in providing some of those incentives to create that innovation. And I think this is where an area where private sector and government partnerships are absolutely essential.
Thank you.
Senator Collins, Madame Ferrer, for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Ms. Bowers, if I could just get you to table, because I don't know if I asked you to do this in the last round, but if you could just table how many mortgages CMHC manages and then the defaults as well that you projected, because I think you said 2% or 6,000 of the mortgages you manage.
Yes, I'm not predicting that 2% will default. I'm just saying those are the highest risk mortgages that we monitor very closely for default.
Okay, thank you. If I could move on to Ms. Gillis. In 2017, the Liberal government promised to reduce chronic homelessness by 50%. It's obviously been 6 years. How much has chronic homelessness been reduced?
Thank you for the question. Since that period of time, as we've been talking about the housing crisis, the context in Canada has changed significantly. And at this point, chronic homelessness for the last number of years has remained approximately steady at 30,000 people.
So it hasn't reduced?
it is, as I mentioned, it's remained steady given the context of the country right now with the housing crisis and the affordability issues within the country.
In 2022, the Auditor General report on chronic homelessness said that your ministry did not know whether your efforts were improving homelessness despite spending $1.36 billion between 2019 and 2021 through the Reaching Home program. I guess, you have a new Minister of Housing. What direction has the minister given you directly since that Auditor General's report? And what specifically has the minister given you?
Thank you very much for the question. That particular audit report was done mainly during COVID time, and the homeless serving sector during that time did not have the capacity to report on results. They were dedicated to saving lives and keeping people safe. Since that time, all of our reporting has caught up, and the metrics that I gave before for the first 3 years of the program have been showing tremendous results from the money that has been spent on that particular program. And of the $3 billion that you mentioned, 708 of that went to dedicated health services to keep people alive, like nursing, like vaccines, like masks, like social distancing, like temporary housing. So that information wasn't available when the Auditor General wrote the report because we are still in COVID times. Since then, it has all been caught up, and we are
Thanks, Ms. Gillis.
publishing
Thank you.
information.
Sorry, for people watching, we have such limited time. That's why we often have to cut short. I would respectfully push back on that response. As somebody who lives in a community whose homelessness has skyrocketed, it feels a bit insulting, to be honest with you, Ms. Gillis, to say that things have done tremendous success. I'm not finished yet. So I just don't think that that's a very compassionate or realistic approach. It feels a little bit like toxic positivity, if I'm going to be honest with you. Moving on. So we have, as of Friday, October 27th, 2023, funding streams for Reaching Home. Reaching Home has 4 regional fund streams that provide funding to communities to address local homelessness needs. Designated Communities Funding Stream, closed. Indigenous Homelessness Funding Stream, no way to apply. Rural and Remote Homelessness Funding Stream, closed. Territorial Homelessness Funding Stream, no way to apply. Ms. Gillis, how do you expect to have such a successful program when people who need this most can't even apply for it?
Thank you very much for the question. In the Reaching Home program, what we want to do is have transparency in results, and that's why I wanted to mention regarding the Auditor General's report. Now we can report on the results. We know that more is required, and that's why we're doing research programs. In the particular program, we do allocate it to community entities over a period of time, and they continue to fund these particular programs. Regarding those particular applications, I will turn to my colleague and talk about those particular closures and what's going on regarding each of those streams. Thank you.
Yeah, so because we allocate the money out to community partners, it's really at their discretion when they accept new applications, when they fully allocate all their funding. So it really would vary community by community whether there's still funding available in any
Thank you,
given
Mr.
year.
Chair. I, again, would push back. You have people, and Ms. Bowers has talked about, you have the missing middle right now. You have people who would never even consider being homelessness. The face of homelessness has drastically changed. And you're saying, well, these programs are closed right now. So it's, it just doesn't make any sense. If these are programs designated for immediate emergency funding and they're closed, how are you supposed to help the people who, less than a mile from where we're sitting right now, are living in tents?
Thank you very much for the question. The allocations are forward-looking. So in the $562 million that we're allocating for the next 2 years, although they're closed for new entities, we are allocating further money to those community entities to be able to address the homelessness situation in their communities. And that's why when the minister was here and we're doing action research, that's why we're doing a veterans program, because we know more is required. And it is super important, and I am certainly very acutely aware of how much this is important to address, and how more is required, and that's why we are looking at what more. That's why we did a survey on encampments and continue to work in this area.
Thank you, Ms. Ferrari. Mr. Fragas-Catos for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Bowers, back to the issue of supply. Moving from the general to the specific, I wanted to ask you about the Canada Mortgage Bond. What is the Canada Mortgage Bond? And how does I know that's a very, very general question, but when people hear things like what recently happened with the changes made to the annual limit and how that relates to housing, what that will do for supply, the pieces might seem a bit fuzzy for the everyday person. So could you touch on those things?
Thank you very much for the question, Mr. Chair. And I smile slightly because the Canada Mortgage Bond relates to our securitization program, and it's not something that most Canadians are aware of, but it's a very important part of our housing finance infrastructure. We've had a $40 billion limit in our CMB program for many, many years, for decades, in fact. And this program provides the lowest cost funding for banks so that they can extend loans to developers for mortgage for financing of development projects. And given that there is this huge need for supply, it is very significant for the CMB program limits to be increased by 50% because it provides much more capacity to our lending institutions who need to provide developers and other private sector actors, and actually nonprofits as well, with the lowest cost funding that is available to support their building needs.
So what is what's the bottom line in terms of the number of units that we would expect to see built as a result of this change? Do you have an estimate on that?
I don't have. Again, this is it's very difficult to estimate given that the market is quite turbulent right now. But I believe that the Department of Finance provided an estimate of 200,000 units over 10 years.
Thank you. Ms. Gillis, I wanted to ask you again about the National Housing Strategy, and you talked about how cooperation is part and parcel of the program. It's built within it. Wraparound supports for individuals who have experienced homelessness, the way that's made possible by not-for-profit organizations. What sort of supports are there that are available? Again, I ask this question from the perspective of constituents in my community and in other communities who might be looking and saying, well, it's one thing to get someone. You mentioned close to 70,000 people who are on the street who are no longer living homeless, who are housed. Someone might look at that at first blush and say, well, that's great, they have a roof over their head, but if they're not given the support that they need to make a transition towards something much more positive, then the problem simply repeats. Could you talk about the wraparound supports that are made available through in effect, the National Housing Strategy, but
Certainly.
all of this is delivered by not-for-profits on the ground?
Thank you. Thank you very much for the question. That is a really important area when we look at people in need. Understanding kind of what their needs are is fundamental part of reaching home. So there's a mandatory requirement called coordinated access, so which gets down to the individual level of understanding, is it mental health? Is it addiction services? Are there other health services? And there is administrative support so that person does not have to go looking within the community to find their support, but it's tailor-made for them to be able to get them to medical appointments, to be able to get them addiction services, to get them to their job training, to help them find a placement in a home. And so there's regular check-ins, and it's very much tailored by the community for the community. So they prioritize based on the needs of the individuals that they're serving. And so we do know, and an international best practice, it's not just about putting a roof over someone's head. It is about that alignment and integration of the wraparound services that you've mentioned with getting somewhere appropriate for them to live. And that gets at the heart of reaching home.
Thank you very much. No, I think I have 25 seconds, so I'm not going to ask you a question, but you do underline something that's incredibly important. The various transitions that are required are very complex, to say the least, but the fact that there is a pathway that people can take and pathways that remain available is a promising thing. To my knowledge, this didn't really exist prior to the implementation of the NHS, the National Housing Strategy. Is that correct?
That's correct. With Reaching Home, we did have a homelessness policy before that, which was about housing first. But that really prioritized housing first above and beyond that integrated wraparound services. And so when we look at international best practice and working with the Canadian Alliance for Ending Homelessness and seeing how others have actually had success in homelessness, it is that making sure that communities understand and having coordinated access and tailored support so those in need can get the services that they need within their communities.
I guess I did ask you a question, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fragas-Gatos. Your time is gone. Madame Chabot pour
2.5 minutes, Madame Chabot. Thank you. I will direct my question to Ms. Gillis with respect to homelessness. You know that there's a national housing strategy. There was a report that was made last June, and in that report, it dealt with chronic homelessness at a rate of some 50%. The committee asked later in December 2023, so it's coming soon, that there be a plan put forward to reduce this chronic homelessness. You can talk about stability, and you talk about reducing homelessness by 50%, and 5 years later it's the same. Is that stability? Let me ask you, what is your intent? Are you going to ask the government for more money for special emergency measures? According in Quebec, we have, according to the 2022 census, we have some 10,000 homeless, at least, at the very least. So what are you going to be able to do to deal with this? Do you have a plan underway to deal with this chronic homelessness?
Merci beaucoup pour la question.
Thank you so much for your question. When you look at what the needs are and who suffers from homelessness, it's very important. And you look at the programs that we already have and what the government has already done. It has doubled the monies for that, up to $4 billion. There are new programs that have been announced for our veterans. We want to know what further needs, what additional needs there are. And there are people who are in the sheltered system, but there are many who are unsheltered. We want to know what the next step will be. We've created a committee with the provinces and territories to better understand what they are doing right now and what we could do in terms of more spending. We work also with our colleagues at the federal level to, and for example, those in Health Canada to increase the impact of our programs. We want to know what we can do further with the government. But as to a time frame, committees are all well and good, but in terms of real action, what is your timeline? When we receive the approval for these funds and so on, we will make it public. But, for example, the Veterans Program, and we will deal with that with what we can do in terms of the framework of chronic homelessness. But this is what we are trying to do. Thank you, Madame Chabot. Ms. Zerillo.
2.5.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So my question is for Ms. Gillies and Ms. Bowers. So rents are disconnected from incomes, and it just can't continue. How can CMHC and Infrastructure Canada ensure that the low-interest savings that are being captured by REITs right now is passed on to renters to keep people in homes, reduce homelessness, and focus on lowering rents instead of increasing profits for executives and investors?
So one thing I would like to highlight to Madame Zerillo is that as part of our mortgage insurance product development, we introduced MLI Select a year ago, where we tied more affordable premiums with social outcomes like affordability. So we are constantly retooling our products to make sure that all government programs support social outcomes that are desirable in the housing market. With respect to rent increases in general, CMHC's position is that it's so important to establish that equilibrium between housing supply and demand, and for the medium and longer term, that's the best way to assure rents that are affordable for Canadians.
Thank you.
So just, sorry, go ahead, Ms. Gillies.
So as we look at Infrastructure Canada in our future programming, the government has made a commitment to linking the conditionality of our programming to accelerating increasing supply as well as affordable housing. So we will be, looking at having that as our prerequisite to access to infrastructure programming.
So, Ms. Gillies, just to follow up on that, what kind of data is needed then? Like, how can we as MPs on the ground that are in the community talking to people, how do we proactively start setting benchmarks and make room to collect the data? What data do we need?
Thank you very much for the question. When we look at the housing needs assessment, at a granular level, certainly when we're planning infrastructure investments at the community level, understanding the community demographics, the growth trajectory, where people live, the income levels, as we plan out communities is going to be, is important. Some communities have already required that. Certainly in the province of BC, there's certain communities that have that requirement. I think that is a necessity as we look at making sure communities have the information they need to plan accordingly, but also that we can have to make sure that we've got aligned investments to meet the community needs now as well as going forward.
Thank you. Ms. Gillies, there's almost 200 people homeless in my community that will have nowhere to go over the next foreseeable future because we don't see any urgency even today in our questioning and answering. What can we do now to get those people into homes in the next 8 weeks?
A short answer, please.
Community entities in your nonprofits, and certainly we're very active working with the provinces and the communities, with the community entities that we fund. I think that there is a sense of urgency and certainly wanting and to work very, very collaboratively to find solutions for the communities across the country that are dealing with this really important issue.
Thank you, Ms. Gillies. If you could just make sure I get some updated contact information of who the representatives are in BC, that would be greatly appreciated.
Thank you, Madame Zerillo. I've got 2 minutes. I'm at the hands of the committee. I don't think we can start.
12 minutes of questions, but I can get it down to 2.
Okay. You've got less than 2 minutes, Mr. Aitchison.
Okay, very, very quickly to Ms. Gillies. I want to go back to the infrastructure announcements related to this transit in Toronto. The Eglinton Crosstown, the West Extension, I realize there's an analysis going on right now, and part of that analysis will include housing. How much money was committed to what's already being built on the Eglinton Crosstown?
I can get you that information. I didn't bring the breakdowns between each of the subway lines with me.
I'm wondering if you can tell me, though, if the department or the government has instructed you on a target. Like, how many units do we think we should try to get per $1 billion we're going to spend on infrastructure for transit?
So in this particular programming, no. This came out in 2019, actually, and through 2021. Yeah. And that right now we're looking at the same kind of needs assessment and understanding the affordability and what's going on and having active conversations with the province and the city to try.
So there's no discussion of what a minimum target might be?
In the discussions right now, I think Ontario does have minimum across the province targets, and then we're looking at the stations themselves, the demographics, the needs, the growth. So it's very much a data-driven, evidence-based approach, and not a hypothetical example.
And quickly, would you also consider, as part of funding for the western extension of the Eglinton Crosstown, would you consider looking at requiring the city to upzone around existing stations that are being built now? It's surrounded by single-family detached residential.
So that's a great question, and that's actually part of the Housing Accelerator Fund, where we look at zoning requirements and allowing 4 and 4, and there's just an agreement with Toronto. So looking at what the opportunities that particular agreement provides to change the dynamics within these discussions and future discussions, I think is super important.
So that's the carrot. That's great. But would you consider considering it as part of the contribution of infrastructure dollars for the next extension?
So the infrastructure dollars do not fund housing. The infrastructure dollars fund transit.
I get that.
Okay.
I get that. Would you use it as a criteria on top of, though?
So it would certainly be taken into consideration and part of the
Okay.
negotiations.
Thank you, Mr. Aitchison. I will just remind before we adjourn, the deadline for briefs for the artificial intelligence study, we'd like to establish as November the 22nd. It would be a Wednesday. For written briefs on the next study, which will begin this coming Wednesday. And we'll have a short time at the end to do some committee business.
How many witnesses do we have confirmed for
6, full slate.
Okay, thank you.
With that, thank you, Ms. Bowers. I'm not sure if we'll see you again. If we don't, all the best with your new position, and congratulations. Thank you, Ms. Gillis and Mr. Johnson, for your testimony here today. Thank you, committee members. Adjourned.